I was just a really poor kid from an almost unbelievably impoverished hardscrabble existence. I was born in an abandoned shack in a ghost town. My parents were rodeo performers traveling from venue to venue, show business. My father was a pugnacious, teetotaling Irishman. My mother was an alcoholic, full-blooded Cherokee. I had 2 sisters and 1 brother, and all 6 of us lived in our pickup truck trailer or random abandoned shacks. We never had enough money, and there was never enough food, and we never went to school. It was not auspicious. There was quite a lot of conflict. After one almost murderous fight between my mother and my father, we left with my mother. We lived in several urban areas where my mother's alcoholism caused her to behave like a semi-professional or amateur prostitute. I began to commit petty crime when I was 9. A few years later, she died, choking on her own vomit. We children were put into a Catholic orphanage and suffered much abuse at the hands of the nuns. I dreamed someone would come and save me, perhaps my father or a giant yellow bird. Later, after our release from the orphanage, one of my older sisters committed suicide, jumping out a hotel window. Then my older brother committed a murder-suicide with his young wife, shooting her, then himself with a shotgun. It was not auspicious. I discovered I had a lovely singing voice and I could play guitar too. I dreamed of being a singing sensation. I thought I was highly intelligent and learned a lot of big words all by myself. I was psychotic and given to magical thinking and outbursts of murderous rage. I joined the army and served in the Korean War, not in combat. As a driver, I had a number of disciplinary problems but was honorably discharged. After service, I bought a motorcycle, crashed it, and seriously injured my legs. I became addicted to aspirin. I lived with an American Indian family for a year while I recovered. I visited my father, and we built a hunter's lodge together in Alaska by hand. After a terrible argument, I left. I would never see him again. I committed petty crimes such as breaking and entering, was arrested and sent to prison for 5 years. In prison, I met my friend Dick, a sociopathic 2-bit check chiseler and pedophile. He had a plan to rob and murder a farm family who supposedly had a safe full of money in their home. He was also hoping to rape the daughter. Dick was ebullient about his plan. He excogitated it carefully. I never had a serious relationship with a woman. I smoked a lot of cigarettes and I drank a lot of root beer. I didn't like prostitutes and I didn't like alcohol. I had a lot of pain in my legs and I took a lot of aspirin. I continued to fantasize about a career in show business. Dick liked prostitutes and alcohol. I was sexually repressed. Dick was a 2-bit check-forging sociopath in way over his head. In high school, he'd been popular and athletic, but his family was poor and couldn't afford higher education. He became a car mechanic, married and divorced several times, had some children he couldn't support, and led a secret life of alcohol and pedophilia. He had a lot of concupiscence. He had a serious car accident and suffered grave head injuries. He was sent to prison for buying valuable items with bad checks and then hawking them. A small-time con man. I was a psychotic with magical thinking and murderous, unbounded, pent-up rage. We drove all the way across the state to the farmhouse in the middle of the night, armed with a shotgun and a hunting knife. They were a nice family living in a nice house on a nice farm. They were successful and they were beloved, both professionally and personally. They were very bourgeois. We terrorized them for 2 hours. We tied them up. Dick wanted to rape the girl, but I wasn't going to allow that. I told him it lacked propriety. It was so inappropriate. I told him he'd have to fight me if he wanted to do that, and he backed down. I can be pretty sardonic. I talked to the girl for a little while alone. She was a very nice person. There was no safe, and there was no money. It was not auspicious. I shot them all. When I killed them, I didn't really feel anything. I was just sort of mad at Dick. The whole stupid situation. My life was so unsatisfactory. All we got out of it was the kid's radio, the father's binoculars in a fancy initialed leather case, and $32 in cash. My life was so perfidious. Dick didn't want to admit it, but I knew. There must be something wrong with us to do what we did back there. I knew it. He didn't want to admit it. We raised some money with check fraud and fled to Mexico, then back to the desert country of the US, then back to Kansas, then to Las Vegas, where we were finally arrested. Dick cracked under questioning. He was perfidious. We were tried and convicted of murder and sentenced to die by hanging. Well, it wasn't a non sequitur. A New York writer got interested in my story. He was a queer. After a number of legal appeals, they hung us both. In conclusion, it was all terribly unfair. Furthermore, in conclusion, my life was so inauspicious. Furthermore, it was so reprehensible.